It's very cold where I'm sitting, so I hope everyone is keeping warm. Thank you for taking the time to come and listen to our story. We're a very unconventional team, or I like to believe that we are unconventional. So we are not going to run this as a formal PowerPoint, lengthy discussion. We really just wanted to take you or demonstrate what we've built from a GRC perspective. So at some point I will hand over to Bruce to take you through the tool and to show you what we've built, as opposed to just, you know, showing or explaining what we've built on a PowerPoint or on a slide. But before I hand over to my colleague Bruce, just by way of introduction, I am Leala Reid, and I head up the compliance portfolio for GRC-as-a-Service within EasyHQ. Bruce, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey guys, my name is Bruce. I head up the development team inside the GRC-as-a-Service function. So we've got a couple of developers and a couple of PMs that do Leala's bidding.
Thank you. Bruce and I work hand in hand because we do like to call ourselves a GRC team with tech capability. So whatever we need built from a GRC perspective, Bruce and his team are the guys that really get the ball rolling from a software development, from a tech perspective. I'm not even going to try and explain what he does. I'm going to leave that up to him. But Bruce, you can skip to the next slide just to give a... And you can go to the next one.
There we go.
Yeah, so to explain what we've built and what we're trying to do as a team, I think it's quite crucial to take you through, you know, the origin story of the system and the tools that we've built and the workflows that we've built. Our journey really starts in 2019. I'm not going to go into detail around the sensitivities when we joined. Within the GRC space. So to put it quite plainly, the objective was to understand what are the current pain points of the organization, what are the current operational or GRC needs, how do we implement new controls, how do we enhance existing controls without creating complexity within the organization from a GRC point of view. So if you had to ask us what our objective or our key mandate was, it really centered around making sure that GRC is accessible for everybody. The GRC expertise, the GRC know-how is not just a concept that should be it's not just a concept that should sit within a GRC function. It's a concept that belongs to everybody. Everybody needs to be compliant. Everybody needs to understand what the GRC requirements are. And we wanted to almost create and design something that provided that inclusivity and that convenience and ease of access. And so we started brainstorming around how do we centralized GRC, how do we make sure that information is placed in one room, one box, the team has access to it, we can manage that data, we can manage the workflows, we can manage anything from a GRC perspective, and we don't have multiple or pockets of data sitting everywhere within the business. You can skip to the next slide, Bruce.
This is slide 3 of 147, so guys, brace yourself.
So yeah, that's the context of where our story or our journey originates. There were a host of problems, which I'm not going to go into the detail of, but there was, when we looked at the issue, we really wanted to break it down in terms of how do we not just solve the problem, how do we create a solution that is innovative? How do we take traditional GRC and almost transform it into something that is easy to use? How do we transform it into something that we certainly haven't seen before? Both Bruce and myself come from a bank, and so we really wanted to play around with a solution that was creative, as I said, simple to use, something that we could customize in the long term, and it's a tool that we continue to enhance and build on. And that almost brings me to the Cerebro platform, the Ultimo platform that we've built. Bruce will take you through that. And the idea was to, from a compliance perspective, whether it be gifts and entertainment, whether it be outside business affiliations or conflicts of interest, whether it be declaring personal account dealings, anything from a GRC perspective, how do we house that in one place so that we can manage the data, we can report on the data, and we can identify any risk that might emerge from those data points. So that's essentially almost coming out of building Cerebro, or enhancing the tool, looking at the pain points, understanding what the business needs. We could go in and really solve from that perspective instead of applying a blanket approach. I think that, yeah, so that gives you it gives you insight into our passion project. We have been working on this system and this tool for a very long time. So without going into the tech and without speaking to the technical aspects, I'm going to hand over to Bruce to show you what we've built and to show you the capabilities on Cerebro and how it can essentially understand your business needs, solve for the problems that your business might face, and how we can customize and build specific workflows that could enhance the control environment.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, Leala. So before I hop onto the platform, it's just to say that, it's a group effort, right? It takes a village. So right in the beginning, you had these villages, which is us. We came out of banking, we came out of compliance, we came out of comms, we came out of marketing, but we all ended up in GRC because we have a passion for GRC and a passion for this kind of work. And it was always demoralizing for us to go and sit where we were and have controls that were, Outlook is not a control, and email is not a control. But everything was done by email. Then all of a sudden, everything was done by Excel. And then all of a sudden, you had these pockets of platforms that hopped up every now and then that had one thing that they could do. They could either do risk, or they could do compliance, they could do control self-assessments, or they could do some control room. They could maybe do a little bit of screening and vetting, whatever it was, but they were all over the place. So when we came on board, we were very, very fortunate because I knew how to use a mouse, I knew how to switch on a computer, and how to navigate a website. And there's a young lady on the call, her name's Nicodine. She's in there. She's hiding in the chat as the attendees, but she taught me everything that I know about how to use the system and how to navigate the system. So when we came in 2019, it was very, very exciting for us to see the potential for Cerebro, which is our system, to say, right, well, we can now have all of these things in one place. Plus, it's homegrown IP. So we charge in rands. There's no dollars. There's no code that's coming in from somewhere else, and you pay the subscription. So the billing model is completely unique and dynamic according to what a client needs. So if a client says, listen, I've only got this much money and I can only do this, cool, let's do that. Or I want to pay per user, cool, let's do that. But you're always paying rands, and we can pivot so quickly in creating so quickly because the beauty of the system is low code, no code. So in the back end, your developers are creating features that are out of the box, but you don't need a developer to create something on the system. Everything's there, everything's in one place. And so it's very rare that you find a group of people that get so excited about something when it's GRC related. And so when Leala says it's our passion project, we are very, very passionate about it. So we're quite excited to show it. So like we said, that's actually the end of the PowerPoint presentation. So that was the 3 slides. I mean, we can go back into PowerPoint if everybody wants to, or we can just hop straight onto the platform. So, yes, can you guys see the platform? Cool.
Yeah,
so we're going to run it. Yeah, we're going to run it like a mini demo to show you what it does in live. But because there's sensitive information on it, we've pre-populated some of the screening and vetting stuff, and we've redacted some of the personal information. Obviously, this is a recorded session. But the platform is housed online. That's tick number 1. It's web access anywhere that you can have an internet connection, you can drive this thing. And I sit in the Western Cape down past Saldanha, and with an internet connection, we drive this whole thing from here. So it doesn't matter where you sit in the world, you can actually run this platform. It can go, we do it on AWS, or we can private cloud host, depends what the client wants. But each instance is a client-based instance. So you're not going to have multi-tenancy. You're going to have your own instance of this. Your data's ring-fenced, security protocols are in there, and the entire system runs. You have an admin panel, you have a user panel, and then you have a super user configuration panel. And you can create everything that you want on here from a control point of view from GRC. This is what excited us, is there's a forms and workflows module that we have built into the system. And that's all you need for control. The form gathers your information, and the workflow has all of your business rules, some automated, some just digitized and user-driven, that you can now push that process through its various stages, its various sets of approval, and get it into an end state. And once it's in an end state, you have all of that data in a SQL database in the back end. There's reporting tools that are built. There's everything that you can think of in one place. And it's not that you would need a developer to do this. You don't need like a SharePoint designer. You don't need a developer kind of person. You just need someone in your team who owns this. It's their key performance indicator. This is what they do. They get trained up as a super user, and the GRC professional in any company can just come on. And with us, obviously, we can do it for the client, or the client does it themselves, but we work with them. We're project managers. We map out the process, work out your as is. Right, let's put it as a test on the system. Let's run a couple of instances. Let's see if it works. Let's make changes. And you can do all of that stuff very quickly, very easily. It's a standard look and feel dashboard. It's on point with most SaaS models. For navigation's on the left-hand side. You can pin it, you can unpin it. And all of these user-driven links here are things that are created on the system. But your standard features that you'll get is a learning management system. Now, it's a very simple, straightforward learning management dashboard that allows us to roll out training for the platform itself. But from a GRC point of view, when you want to ring fence a policy rollout, add some really funky training to it, and deliver it to your audience, you can do it on the system. Straightforward LMS dashboard. We log in. You can create user accounts manually. You can link up to your 365 single sign-on. It all depends how the client wants to do it. And your LMS dashboard, which a lot of people on the call that are internal would have experienced it, and you would see we have like a super users platform that allows you to add whatever content a super user would want. We have our GRC material that you run up. We have a data privacy basics, and all of the material, you view the material. It's all in standard SCORM wrapping. Could be videos, could be interactive content, could just be an assessment, whatever it is, could be a PDF policy, and whatever you want people to acknowledge to the minute they open it and close it. It auto acknowledges, whatever the case may be. So that was really key for us, because when you start in a GRC environment, it's always asked by an auditor or regulator from that point of view, where is your training on financial crime that you've rolled out? This regulation says you have to roll out training. You're a listed entity. You've got to roll out training annually. Show us where you rolled that out. And all of that's controlled in one system. But we can integrate. So we can also integrate with other tools and other platforms. So we can, because we've got all the data, we can push it or we can pull it. So that was really key for us. With the forms and workflows, what was really nice is from a compliance point of view, we were able to create all of these. So we're not going to go through them each individually, because if you really want to go through the detail of all of these, set up a demo with us. We'll gladly show you the full capability of the system in a closed environment. But this is a publicly recorded webinar, so we don't want to go into all of the specific detail. But you will be able to create any kind of dashboard that you want that can gather your information. So we'll click on one just to show you what the dashboard looks like, but we're not going to go through the actual form. But we've created one for control and due diligence, where you can request due diligence, and that's what we're going to go through in the next screens. Outside business interests. You can capture your outside business interests, all your employee compliance models like gifts and entertainment, personal account dealing, if you want to do bank verification, even things like a complaints log. So all of these can be built, and we can build them within a day. If you know what it is that you want to build, you can build it within a day. The scoping normally takes longer when you map out a business process, but our building is immediate. It's instant. Changes can be done very quickly. We can even build a change process. We've done for numerous clients, the change request on the actual system itself. We have regulatory engagement. If you have to engage with the regulator, all of the stuff that you commit to a regulator. So everything that you can think of from a compliance point of view, you can create on the system. All of that information is on their own database, and you can generate from the system. We can generate reports for you. All of what we'd like to do is, because we don't want to compete with Microsoft in the dashboards that Power BI can create, because that is a powerful tool. So we integrate with that. But if a client says, listen, we don't want you to do that, integrate, give us your own dashboards, we can create those as well. So before I move on to, well, let me just show you quickly what a dashboard would look like. Somebody would come in and they would then be able to request an instance of that data to create something, to receive something. And this is the kinds of dashboards that they would experience. So before I move on to the actual verification, the Ultimo tool that we have, which we're very proud of, I'm just going to ask Leala, is there anything that you want to add at this level? Anything else you want me to cover?
No, I think we've touched on the different workflows at a high level, Bruce. So I think we can kick into our screening tool.
Okay. So, when somebody comes on and they create something in a form, let's say, and then they push it through a workflow, there has to be a team in the background then that will be able to access that and, do what it is that they need to do within that workflow. So they would get a different view. I'm just going to show you what that view would look like, because they would then have admin access and they'll be able to view the workflows that they would have access to. So if we had to take, I can see, absolutely everything. But if you had to take something like a onboarding and due diligence workflow, for example, this is what that team would now come in and access. And at all of these points, there's business rules and system notifications that can be configured. Low code, no code, super user comes and configures, says when something moves or enters here, let these people know. Let everybody know, and when it gets there, let it sit for 2 days. Somebody can move it physically or let it move automatically. So the screening and vetting team would come in and they would say, right, we've got 31 instances here that we need to clear. We need to do screening and vetting. At that point, they then hop on to the Ultimo tool. So I am going to pause here and let Leala just give us a bit of background on this Ultimo tool and the screening problem that we faced with all of the disparate data sets everywhere. And then we'll go through an example or two of it actually, what it looks like when it renders the information from a search.
Thank you, Bruce. Before we go into this detail, just a disclaimer, This is a very powerful tool from a data perspective. So we have sanitized the dashboard. We're not going to show any personal information. So when you do see the information that pops up, it's not the tool glitching. There's nothing wrong with Ultimo. It's just that we've tweaked the data. We've got the necessary consents to share, but we just wanted to, at a very high level, show you the capability and what are the different features of Ultimo. So we are literally just showing you 20% of what the tool can do, and the other 80% is obviously covered in, you know, your more intimate demos, where NDAs and all of that get involved. So a little bit of a background. When we started the control room from a third-party risk management perspective, we needed to have an idea, or before we onboarded any third party, we needed to have an idea of who we are dealing with, what are the risks associated to a specific third party, whether it be a company, whether it be a natural person. And there were a number of different categories of data that we needed to look at. There wasn't a central point of where or a specific tool or a specific system that gave us everything in kind of one room. So just by way of example, if we needed to screen company X, we would have to, this was in the earlier days, the team would have to log on to a specific tool. From an AML perspective, they would then need to log on to a different system for credit information. Then you would do a standard Google check, look for anything social media related or anything in the media around bribery and corruption. Then we would need to log on to SIPC. So there were different tabs open, and it became quite a manual process. And so screening would, on a normal day, would take up to about 30 minutes or an hour, because we would go into that deep analysis of the third party, plus ultimate beneficial ownerships, plus, you know, associated parties, etc., just to get an idea of you know, the risks attached from or give us a consolidated view of the risk or where the risk lies. So we didn't just do a screening on the company or quick tick box check. We really did a deep dive into our third parties. So we looked for everything and anything. And then the next portion of that screening would not just be the AML portion, the adverse media. It would also be what's on our watch and restricted list. We also want to see is there anything from an internal data perspective that we need to have a look out for? So has there been a gift or entertainment declared? Does this particular third party, are there any declarations or conflicts of interest that have been declared, or side hustles? Can we pick up anything from a whistleblowing or forensics perspective? So it was a deep analysis using external and internal data. And as I've said, it would take around a day or two just to provide feedback on a particular screening. And if we were getting an influx of around 30 requests a day, you can do the math. It took quite a long time to provide feedback to the business. And that's obviously not what we wanted. We wanted to be a robust team. We wanted to provide and onboard third parties as quick as conveniently possible without exposing the organization to any type of risk. And so that was really the background, the backdrop against where, we started brainstorming around how do we make this process a bit more efficient? How do we take away that manual dependency, and how do we create something that is much more digitized? It's a one-stop shop for everything, and we really have an overall view of AML data, adverse media, credit information, etc. So on the screen, you'll see there that there's external and internal data. So what I've just explained, I'll take you through. So if we want to use a specific company, so again, we've got external data where we have a profile verification, and then on the right, you can toggle whether you want to see internal information such as G&E, reg engagements, etc. So if we use an example, we put in EasyHQ. You can use a registration number or a company name. and Ultimo will spit out any type of variations of the name.
Yeah.
Bruce?
So what I'll do, Leala, is I'll take it open from here. So what we would usually do in a demo is obviously we would click on this, and within 30 seconds you're going to get your result. But we have now pre-populated what an EasyHQ result would look like for a company. And then we'll take you through each of these sections, and we just sanitize some of the personal information. So I think the first thing is that on the side over here, we pull this information from our partners, and we then consolidate and aggregate all of that data so you can see it in one place, like Leala mentioned. We will see the publicly available information, the information that we bring in from whichever bureau we're working with in the region that we're working in. So in South Africa, we'll work with a specific partner. If we're in different parts of Africa or Europe or the Americas, then we will plug into those data sources to get that publicly available information. But the one thing that we do have is globally is the money laundering results that we would get for financial crime. And I think that's the main one that we will just talk to now, is that you'll see that we have a hit, but it's a 75% hit, but it's not on EasyHQ. We've set it fairly low. It's picked up the S in the name. That's it's as close as it will get to EasyHQ. So if there was a 100% hit, it would show EasyHQ, and it would give you the anti-money laundering and the financial crime data for that specific entity. If there is nothing, it will come back with a green result that says no information found on the entity, and we know that from a financial crime point of view that we're good. It looks into all of the watch lists that you can think of globally. There's more than 30 that it looks at, including sanctions, OFAC. It looks at Panama Papers, all of that data. And what it will render for you is, and we won't click on these, but if there is adverse media that relates specifically to financial crime, it would render, and you would click on this specific box, and it would bring you the links, and it would also show you the details so you can skim through it very quickly. If there are on any of those watch lists, then that watch list data is here. If they're a specific category, so a special interest entity, or terrorist organization, or sanctioned organization, those categories will pop up. If there is a logo that's available for the company, it will be here. What countries do they operate in? What are the specific roles that they have assigned to them from a financial crime point of view? Who are the linked individuals, and are there any other linked companies? And you can also render that into its own PDF report. So from that point of view, you've got your KYC data on the left-hand side for the company as they relate to, we found them in a South African context. If they're not found in a South African context, then all that will come up is the financial crime information, and then whichever, if we're in a different region, whatever KYC documentation is available from that region. So Leala, I don't know if there's anything you want to add from the KYC and AML dash, and just how the team looks at the information.
Yeah, so very briefly, if there aren't any hits, there'll obviously be no information on the dashboard, but we do work the false positives. So we will go into, if there is a hit, we'll make sure that there's no positive match. We'll make sure that it EasyHQs, by way of example. We will do a deep dive, make sure that it's not the same entity on any watch or restricted list from a fin crime perspective.
Cool. We also have the we API into various data sets, like we said. So Google Maps, we can tell is the address, does it match the address that's found? So screening agents will look at that. And then it will give you directors and judgments. So if there are any publicly available judgments, so obviously it's not going to be judgments that are in process. This is post the fact. This is something that's in public record, and there is a judgment against the organization. And then the directors. So we sanitize the directors except for the one director, Gareth Young. So Gareth Young is the head of governance, risk, and compliance for EasyHQ, just in case you're wondering. So we do have his permission to use his data. So the screening agent can come in automatically and see who is the director and they can click on that director's ID number, and it will immediately in a new tab start to render that result. So whilst that's rendering, and those maybe 5 or 6 directors are rendering in other tabs, the screening team can still remain in this tab and now look at the internal data, like Leala spoke about. So this is, when we say internal data, this is stuff that actually exists inside the data sets of your compliance tools that you've created inside the system. So we have one for outside business interests. We call them side hustles. So is there any information on this entity within any side hustles in the organization? So anybody that's listed, I have a side hustle, do they have a side hustle with EasyHQ? And it would come up here. And then on the director level, any of the directors. So any of this information at this level that fits inside this KYC, if it matches any internal data, it will list it here, and you will then be able to extract that form in that specific workflow and go through the information. And like Leala said, the team will then eliminate false positives, but if they do find something, they'll note it in their findings. So that's the internal data. Leala, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add on there.
Just so Ultimo is also custom, in a sense, it's customizable. So we can add features, we can remove features. So for instance, some clients might want a VAT search, some clients might not. So that's a very, it's a very flexible feature of Ultimo. Not everything is standard, and it's not we don't take Ultimo and just plonk it into the business unit or a specific team. It really is about what your business needs are. Yeah, that's just what I wanted to add.
Yeah, 100%. So we can API, and we say API, but we can actually read any data. We can fetch any data that you give us. So some clients give us static tables that are on a secure FTP site. So we grab that information, password protected, we put it into a CSV, and then actually Alban just did this recently with us, and we can then create 5 or 6 tabs for that information. So vendor list, a supplier list, an employee list, and all of that kind of stuff we can read into. We have a nice plugin. We use Copilot. So you can actually use Copilot, or you can use the actual search functionality. So you can also, over and above that, you can do any kind of media searches. So we could say, give me any positive media on EasyHQ, and if there's anything, then Copilot will just bring it back in a natural language process for you. Then it will also, you can also look for any kind of media. So if you want to say any kind of news, you can have a look at EasyHQ, go into a standard search. And this is just, we can use it. It's not Copilot specific. It can be Gemini, it can be ChatGPT, it can be the client's own version, it can be our version in EasyHQ, which is called Amy. We've got a whole bunch of options that allows the screening agent to work at this level and look for extra hits. What's important to note is that this is something that we can do internally ourselves. We use Ultimo for the client, and we show them how we get the information. Or the client comes in and uses the screening tool Ultimo, and we train them up, and they do this portion themselves as well. So both options are available. We have a really nice advanced social media search that we can do. I've just sanitized it here because we don't want to bring it up for an organization, but if it's required, a deep dive can be done on any negative postings or any kind of social media metrics for an organization. And then the nice thing that we do have is a limit recommendation report. Now, EasyHQ itself is a fairly new entity in terms of registration, so there's not going to be a lot of historical data where you can request a limit recommendation report. And it's also got a lot of information in there that we don't want to bring up in this webinar. But in a normal demo, we can show you exactly what you're able to do is do a new buyer limit recommendation. And let's say it's a supplier or a customer. And let's say it's a customer, you want to give them a line of credit. Are they good for it? So you say you want to give them 30 days at $1 million. You look request it, it'll come back and it'll say you can actually give them the $1 million at 30 days, but you can increase it to 2 million if you want, or we would suggest 500,000. That's based on publicly available information. And then if you want to add things like your invoice history for that client, if you want to add in historical data, bank records, those kinds of things, that can also be done. So there is a functionality that we have for that, which is quite nice. And then, like Leala said, at a company level, you can do a VAT search, get the VAT number on the VAT search portal. So at this point, at a director level, the director would have generated. So we've generated now, this is the director search, and it's come directly in exactly the same. On the left-hand side is the individual's details. So you'll see their ID number and their name. And then from here, you'll be able to see a financial crime dashboard. So from a fin crime point of view, was there any information? And that would match these. Exactly the same if there was a hit, adverse media, category, associated companies, associated individuals. Property ownerships, which is also quite nice if you want to see if somebody has bought or sold to a specific client a piece of property. And then you would have directorships. So we have the EasyHQ directorship for this individual, for Gareth. And then I'm just going a bit backwards. So we have a credit report that will show you directorships, corporate interests, property, a credit score, income prediction, judgments and defaults. And then as well, you'll be able to download the municipal account detail that's available for that individual. And then your ID and V detail. We have confirmation that not deceased is the address verified, marital status, employment, ID status, your age, and then the relatives. So you can now also, on the relative search, you can also click on that ID number and do a relative search. So you can really go quite far, especially in the directorship level. You'll be able to click on the registration number and that will pull up result. So you can have everything in one place, depends how deep you want to go. And then exactly the same Copilot. Before I show you the social media for an individual, Niels, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add from this point of view for an individual. It's fairly similar, straightforward. Okay, cool. Advanced social media, what you can do is you can now request a report for the individual. We've requested a report already, and what that does is it brings you back the results for the individual. That includes things like their Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, and it looks at the metrics to see if there is any positive or if there is any negative score. Are you posting positive information or negative information? That kind of detail comes in from an advanced social media report. So there it is. In one go, you're able to now render all of the information that you're looking for on the company, and it takes us longer to explain it to a client than it does to get it. You get it within a minute on either a company or an individual, where it used to take, when we digitize it, it used to take 30 to 35 minutes. And before that digitization, it used to take up to 4 or 5 days just to get a result for somebody. I mean, and I'm gonna cut it there, Liaz. I don't know if there's anything else we can add, but that's our favorite tool. This is what we absolutely love talking about. It's a game changer for due diligence, and we're able to then plug this into workflows and forms, like we said, on the platform itself. So it becomes very, very useful to have everything in one place, because then you really are confident in the result that you're getting.
Yeah. And as you can see, just by clicking and plugging in the necessary data, we have all the information at hand, and it takes a few seconds to get all that information. So what used to take us around an hour, 2 hours, if not days, now takes us around a few seconds to spit out information. I think the time is spent on doing a deep dive we have, we have the capacity and we have the time now to go into that deeper analysis. So access to the data is quick. The turnaround time to business is 24 hours. And if needs be, we can expedite it. You can get a report within 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. And what's really cool is that we've actually had a couple of clients that have said to us, right, how do we take the results just from Ultimo tool, and can you now take that and auto-populate something for us, where we don't want to now go and have a look at that and I have to go and type into a form our findings. Can you auto-populate the director's name and that kind of stuff into a final result for us, and then from there add our opinion or our overall findings, whatever the case may be, where there is an actual hit, where there is an instance or screening or vetting where something needs to be attended to or dealt with from a risk point of view. So that's something really cool that we can start doing, and it's really dynamic, and it's configurable, and all depends. You can take it out of the box, or clients can add to it, remove from it. So from that point of view, it's fairly dynamic, and I think that's it. What I'm going to do is stop sharing my screen there, and then I think maybe we can open it up if there's any questions. I don't know if we've got any questions in the chat.
There are two. The first one is, if we as a BU are asked a question related to EOH and any financial crime committed, can we share this info with them, or do we need permission to share this info? And they say this would come via a questionnaire or onboarding requirements.
I'm going to hand that one over to, did you get it, Leala, from the EOH point of view? The question was just, is it in the chat? Did you say it's in the chat?
It is, it's in the Q&A section.
Oh, in the Q&A.
Yeah, so...
so it's from Ashley. So Ashley, look, let's take it. Yeah. So if you as a BU asked a question related to EOH and any financial crime committed by EOH, can we share this information, or do we need permission to share the information?
It's always a good idea to get permission first. Permission never hurts anyone. But there is such a thing as tipping off. So if we do find something from a fin crime perspective, it's a regulatory obligation to make sure that we're not tipping off the third party. So the first answer is get permission. The second answer is make sure that we're not tipping off the third party if there's any findings. Typically any type of report that we have, or any type of report that we put together, is for internal use only.
Cool. And then Johanna, the accuracy level of the hits when analyzing or checking further is at 80 or 100%. So I'm not too sure which portion you're referring to, but if you're looking at the AML information where you saw that there was a level between sort of 70 to 100, you still got to go in, and the screening agent will go in and eliminate any false positives to say, right, this information which has come back from where we get our information from is not the entity or the individual we're looking at. So you would have somebody that would eliminate the false positives. The rest of the information is very accurate. It comes directly from government sources. So unless it's incorrect at source, if your ID number at the Department of Home Affairs is incorrect, or the photograph you have online is incorrect, and that kind of information is taken directly from those sources. So we're very confident in them being 100% correct as they've been captured. Cool.
Brilliant. I don't see any other questions.
Awesome.
Happy days. And that means we get to give people an extra 11 minutes to get time back in their diary, or we can play some videos, play some music.
You can sing them a song if you
I would just like to mention as well, if anybody or their clients are looking for a demo on Cerebro or Ultimo, please reach out to Bruce and Leala, or you can contact marketing and we will put you, we'll connect you with the right people.
Perfect.
Happy days. Thanks, Sade.
Thank you,
Thanks, guys.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.